Hey everyone, let's be honest for a second. We all see it. We read the articles, we see the news, we scroll past the headlines, and they all seem to be screaming the same thing now is a terrible time for your money. You might be feeling it in your gut. This anxiety, this fear that it's a bad time to buy property, a bad time to invest, a bad time to even think about building wealth. And you're not crazy for feeling that way. It's genuinely hard out there right now. Wages for most of us have basically been stagnant since we were born, while the cost of everything else has exploded. Let's just take the classic American dream of owning a home. In our parents' generation, that was the one thing you were supposed to do to build wealth. But here's the brutal math in that time. Our wages have maybe increased 2x, but housing prices, they've increased by 9x. The old rules just don't work anymore. The math isn't mathing. So if you're renting right now and feeling like a failure because you haven't bought a house, I want you to listen to me carefully. You might actually be the most financially intelligent person in the room. In this market, renting can be an incredibly smart financial decision. But here's the secret the wealthy have always known, the idea that I want you to burn into your mind today. The legendary investor Warren Buffett famously said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." Right now, everyone is fearful, and that means that all around us, assets are quietly going on sale. Think about the insanity of the last few years. I saw an NFT the other day that sold for 60 million at the peak of the hype. Today, that same NFT is worth about 19,000. That's what happens when you buy into greed. But now the opposite is happening. People are panicking. And that means for those of us who are paying attention, this is the time to put up our little spidey sense and start looking for smart moves. As Baron Rothschild, one of the wealthiest men in history, said, you should all buy when there's blood on the streets, even and especially when the blood is your own. That's a harsh image, but it's a powerful truth. It's real money is made when the market feels the toughest. So how do you do that? How do you prepare to make those smart moves? Before you can even think about investing or making more money, there's a crucial first step that most people skip. You have to learn to speak the language of money. Think about it. How could you possibly win in a negotiation or build a relationship with someone if you don't speak the same language? It would be impossible. Money is its own language, and if you don't understand it, you will never have more of it. So let me give you a quick test right now to see where you stand. A simple way to know if you're financially literate today. Do you really understand the difference between a debit card and a credit card, and why you should almost never, ever be using your debit card? I know what you're thinking. For years, we've been told that credit cards are bad, that debt is the enemy. And yes, credit cards can be bad if you don't pay off your balance every single month, if you let those huge interest rates pile up, or if you use them to buy things you want instead of things you need. But in almost every other scenario, your debit card is actually far, far worse. Here's why. First, and this is the most important reason a debit card does not build your credit. And in the United States, having good credit is the absolute underpinning of wealth. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built. I had a personal experience with this myself. I grew up in London where the system isn't as strongly based on credit. I was trained my whole life to only use a debit card. So when I moved to the US, that's what I did. A year later, when I finally wanted to get a car, maybe get an apartment, I was hit by a ton of bricks. I couldn't get anything. Why? Because I had no credit score. It was non-existent. I had done everything right, but I couldn't exercise any of it because I didn't speak the language of credit. Second, debit cards give you zero perks, no points, no cash back, no rewards. You are literally leaving free money on the table every single time you swipe it. And third, and this might be the most shocking, you are far less protected with a debit card. Think about this. If a scammer gets your debit card details and drains your account, that's your money that's gone. The bank might investigate, but there's no guarantee you'll get it back, and it can be a long, painful process. Now, compare that to your credit card. If someone steals your number and racks up fraudulent charges, what happens? You make a few clicks or one phone call, and the credit card company erases the charges and ships you a new card. Why? Because it's their money at risk, not yours. They have every incentive to fix it immediately. This generation was so terrified by the idea that debt is bad that we missed the most important secret of the wealthy. They all use debt. The difference is they use good debt instead of bad debt. They understand the power of leverage. Warren Buffett says he doesn't like debt. But if you look at his businesses, he is massively leveraged. He has a huge amount of debt. But here's the key distinction. He has debt on assets, on companies that make money, not on personal liabilities. He isn't mortgaging his own house to buy a company. He's raising debt against the company itself in order to help it grow and make even more money. That is the language of wealth. So, where do you start? How do you begin this journey to financial freedom? It starts with this simple, powerful first steps. Forget about making more money for a second, and let's just understand the language. You need to get a credit card. Don't stress too much about which one has the absolute best perks right now. Just get one from a major bank and start using it for your normal expenses, paying it off in full every single month. And if you have children, one of the greatest gifts you can give them is to get them a credit card when they're in high school. By the time they're ready to start their adult lives, they will have access to the first pillar of wealth, resources. You know the saying, takes money to make money. Well, credit is a resource. It gives you access to capital that you can then use to build your future. Most people skip this step because credit feels scary. But if you can master this one simple tool, you will be laying a foundation that is stronger than 90% of the people out there. You have to understand the rules before you can win the game. And the first rule is this: start building your credit today and stop using your debit card.